Whether you lead a small business or a multinational corporation, international expansion can provide growth opportunities for your company. But international business is risky, but it also opens potential benefits. Let's talk about the risk. One type of risk associated with international business is political risk. If reading the news tells you anything, it's that there are problems in the world. Imagine stretching your supply chain into a new country only to have a war break out and you lose your investment. It can happen. Both civil and international wars, devastating in their own right to the people who live there, can destroy a company's investment in a new country. Another major risk is political instability. Some countries have stable and therefore predictable governments. Predictability is good for business, but other countries experience significant turmoil and political uncertainty. I remember conversations at a company I worked for about potentially expanding into Venezuela. We ultimately did not pursue it, largely because of the Venezuelan government. The risk was simply too high. And speaking of Venezuela, another political risk is nationalization of a company's resources. Governments sometimes take over control and ownership of a company's operations. Venezuela had a successful and growing oil industry. But in 1976, it nationalized that oil industry, effectively taking over ownership and operations that had previously been owned by private companies. If you were leading a foreign oil company, you saw your investment disappear without so much as a gracias. Economic risk is another significant concern associated with international business. I had to deal with the complexity of significantly different wage rates while planning retail operations in Latin America. At the time, one country had a minimum wage equivalent to over $7, similar actually to the US, while its neighbor had workers making less than $2 per hour. Also, currencies can fluctuate, and inflation can cripple economies. Some countries have high unemployment. This can be a problem if you hope to find customers that are able to pay for your products, but it could also be an opportunity if you're trying to provide jobs. Other international business concerns relate to property rights. Some governments do not respect or enforce property rights, such as patents, copyrights, or trademarks. Semiconductor companies often look to Asian countries for lower-cost manufacturing, but they must take care that their patents are not stolen by either private organizations or the governments of those countries where they operate. The more countries you work in, the more exposed you are to these concerns. But the more countries you work in, the more you might be able to spread out these risks. International diversification can help companies perform better if they're able to navigate the risk and operate efficiently in those different places. You also have new opportunities provided by economies of scale, location advantages, and a larger market. Exposure to new countries can also help with innovation because of how much you learn from different cultures and ways of doing things. And the increased profits from international operations can support greater research and development efforts across the entire company. Of course, those benefits are not guaranteed. In addition to the political and economic risk that we talked about, larger and more complex companies can struggle under their own weight if not managed effectively. Companies seeking to grow internationally should carefully navigate trade barriers, logistical costs, cultural diversity, differences in employee skills, and many differences in how governments operate and influence businesses. Does your company face any of the international business risks that we've talked about? If not, what risks would be most relevant to your company if you were to expand internationally? I hope you found this video to be helpful and interesting. Have a great day. Take care.